G'day and welcome to Panzer Garage. We're going to have a look at another StuG today, the StuG II Ausf G. This is the most widely produced StuG out of all of the variants. Some 8,423 were produced between December 42 and April 45. Again, as I've sort of said in my previous reviews, the StuG III is the most widely produced German vehicle of the war, and accounts for the most kills. This variant is the Ausf G, but it's the Finnish version. The Germans exported 59 StuG IIIs to Germany, Finland. The Finnish Army's armoured division was formed in 1942 and included an assault gun battalion, which this belongs. They originally had BT 42s, so they bought some StuGs from Germany to re-equip themselves in spring 1943. The first 30 were received between July and September 43, and Finnish camouflage was put on it, so it's slightly different hues of green and brown, and a sandy sort of colour. So it's an interesting version camouflage wise to have in your collection of StuGs, which is the reason why I purchased this Tamiya version. When they first arrived, the Finnish were a little sceptical of them, but no other AFV in Finland's arsenal at the time could match the StuG III's capability. So in '44 they ordered another 29. And these 29 were more late production vehicles, and they had Zimmerit and Salkoff mantles. So the mantles are slightly different, and they had Zimmerit on them as well. You can see on the side too they have some logs for extra protection, some concrete casing on the casement there. They didn't have MG34s, and you'll see in the kit that you've got a Finnish DT machine gun. They replaced them, and Sumai submachine guns replaced the M40s by the crew, you won't see spare wheels on the sides of the vehicle either. They did quite well in battle. If you get the kit, it comes with a bit of history on it and some key people in it. Although they only really faced combat from June to July 1944, the StuG's records was they only lost 8 StuGs, even though they destroyed 87 Russian vehicles. So they did quite well. So hence why that I've decided to add one into my collection. So you would have seen from my other videos that we have a numerous amount of German variants. This is the only Finnish version we've got. We'll have a quick look at the booklet, instruction booklet. The thing I like about Tamiya is their instructional booklets are fantastic. Far better than any other manufacturer, and you know, they're just getting better. I've got some new different vehicles recently from Tamiya, and the instructions I couldn't believe, but they've improved them more, and they've started to add coloured brochures and things to it as well. There's the front cover. As we go over, it's the sort of standard sort of Tamiya stuff. This is a booklet rather than a fold-out sheet. Again, like most, it gives you 2 options, an early type and a late type to follow. One with the road wheel on the side, which is unlike the German version, or with the logs on the side. I'm going with the later version with the logs on the side. Here you have again the standard bottom production of the chassis, suspension arms. Some extra armour has been added on to the Finnish version, and you'll see that you're located on in there. So it's not just, you know, standard Tamiya StuG with different decals and paint job. It's actually got different parts in it for the Finnish version itself. Suspension, etc. Going on. The finishing or further detailing of the chassis and the wheels, as you can see at the bottom there. Having a quick look, the drive sprocket and idlers, it's all quite, you'll see in the sprues, it's quite well moulded as we get to that later on. Finishing off again, completing the rest of the bottom of the chassis with the additional tracks, etc. added to the front. Beginning of the superstructure here. Again, slightly different, not as many parts as the Dragon version that we've previously had a look at, but again that doesn't necessarily mean any less detail. It's just a different way that Tamiya tend to manufacture. I actually find these a good kit to start off if you're a bit of a beginner. Tamiya ones are pretty good to start off with in terms of you know, constructing a fairly good model at the end of it. Again, you've got more add-on armour to apply on the upper hull. Additional parts to the rear. So again, good logical sequencing and detail from Tamiya. Two-part gun unfortunately, but again if you wanted to you can always opt to buy a Tamiya compatible aluminium turned gun if you wanted to. And again, there's no real internal detail as you will see compared to say Dragon for it. I mean the roof's got to go on, so it's pretty just the gun casement, and that's it. So this, if you're looking for further detail, this is probably not the kit. You might be able to buy some additional from Verleden or somewhere like that, some additional internals if you wanted to, but hey, if you're not really bothered about it, particularly if you've got a crewman in there, you're not really going to see it anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that level of detail. Tracks are on. Tracks are one-piece vinyl. Some people like them, some people don't. Look, I tend to find that they break down a bit over time. Dragon have solved with this with their latest DS tracks. I think Tamiya may have, however the one that I've got is still the old vinyl type. I don't mind it. Look, I've had a Jug Panzer 4L70, which I've had for a long time now, and it's got vinyl tracks on it, and it seemed to be good. And you know, when I was a kid, I built small 172 scale models, and their vinyl tracks are still all on it, so it's not that bad. But just be something to be aware of if you wanted to replace it with, if you've got some old Magic track, or if you've got some Fru model or AFV tracks are good to do. I've got some Fru model tracks to put on this guy if everything turns out the way I want it to. Again, now we're getting into some more detail on the casement and upper hull. Again, the upper hull machine gun, the DT machine gun, Finnish DT, and some further detail on the back here. Don't forget little things like this, that you've got to apply this at some point, so you might decide to leave some parts off. I tend to leave some of the small parts off until after I finish painting, and then I paint them separately, like the wooden box and some of the final works, and I add them on later on, but it's really horses for courses, it's really just up to you. You've got a good guide here for the towing arm. You've got plastic and you've got some string. You'll see that string in a minute, and within the instruction booklet it gives you the length of how to make it, which I find is a really good level of detail that Tamiya add into their kits. So you got the two options here, the early type A option and the later type B option. So if you decide to go to the A, that gives you that layout here of where to put the wheels and the extra kit. Whereas you're not going to have that on the other one, so you'll end up with some spares. And here with the logs, I'm probably going to go with the logs, and then I'm probably going to look at some other locations for shovels and things like that to put, because I would have taken them anyway. Probably they would end up in the toolbox, but we'll see how we go, and I might add them on there. But the logs are good to have, because I don't have anything like that. In terms of painting, a lot of guys paint their logs first in flesh colour, and then they use various brown washes of various shades to sort of overlay it and then create that sort of layer. So flesh colour under it is quite handy to have. You've got a crewman there too in his Finnish uniform. So again, it's good to have, as you quite often don't see the subject come up that often. And just some extra text as usual with Tamiya about decals and painting on the back. But what it does come with, interestingly, is some background information from Finnish Army. So when you layer it, it'll give you some different countries. So the English, if you're into English, the English version is across here. Details some of the history, some of Finland's weaponry, some of the StuGs and battles, some details in terms of map of how they sort of fought, some specification sheet there to have a look at, marking colour chart here, again pretty typical of Tamiya, well detailed, well laid out. You've got some options there for rings. They use the same. Finland tends to follow a standard sort of German practice in terms of how they detail, for example, their turret ring, their gun rings, etc., etc., and uniforms and things like that. And you've got the marking guide for the other one, if you're into that version. So again, that was nice to have that in there. Now here we have the standard vinyl tracks, so we'll get this out of the way. Again, you know, well moulded. But again, at the end of the day, they're the vinyl one, if that's what you wanted. If not, you've got some other aftermarket options to have a look at too. Now I'll keep the majority of these sprues in the plastic, but here when we compare this chassis to Dragon, is it the same level of detail? Yeah, I mean it is slightly different. Slightly different layout how they do their underneath small hatches, etc. at the back for working on the vehicle. But detail wise, it's no real different. It doesn't have the same amount of detail in terms of, on the chassis anyway, in terms of weld marks. Like the Dragon one used to have some weld marks across here, but there's none on here. However, in terms of the rest of it, it's not too bad, but it's moulded in 1995, so the chassis on that's a little older, one of the older Tamiya versions. In terms of the sprue, the road wheels, drive sprocket idler, track guides, you've got fairly well detailed on here. I'd say they're just as detailed. Looking at these, they're just as detailed as the Dragon ones that we've looked at with Cyber Hobby. So there's no real issue there. Tamiya stuff at this level is quite good in terms of how it's detailed. I find it's a bit more simplified because there's not as many parts, but it's still fairly well detailed. You actually get a couple of a piece of string there for your tow cable. Personally, I'm not a big fan. Don't really like the string. I'd even go as far as to say I prefer a good quality moulded plastic. But you can also buy aftermarket wire if you wanted to as well. I mean, I have used this. I do paint them up, but I just find them a real pain to put together with the super glue component, because they often fray and all that sort of stuff. So it's probably not my preferred option. However, on the flip side, compared to wire, it's a lot easier to sort of lay out and mould. And then for those that haven't used these before, I tend to lay it out to exactly where I want it, and then I go along it with a very, very small micro brush with super glue, and have it put super glue on the rope, and that, when it dries, it keeps it in place, and then I paint it the appropriate colour. So this comes with two crew, like a full crew member and a half crew member if you wanted to, or you may even open up the other side and try and use both crew. So you've got a few options to sort of play with there. There's your logs. Again, you know, this is fairly well detailed. The casement is on this vehicle for Finland is concrete, so is partly concrete. So you can see that here they've moulded that into some of the casement parts here, which is quite good. Very well detailed. So that'll come up nice when painted. And if you did an underlying grey concrete colour, and then put your colour over that, and either using the hairspray technique or using some of the Humbrol products, you can then create a chipping effect on there. The gun looks pretty good. Two moulded. It's cleaner than the ones from Cyber Model, from Dragon's Cyber Hobby. So I'm probably, again, like I tend to do, I'll put these together, paint it up, see how it looks. If I like it, I'll keep it. If not, I'll purchase another one and buy that. Therefore, I'm not wasting my money. Look, if I can get away with using it, I probably would. I don't see the point in spending. I've got a few guns that are aluminium based, and unless you touch it and handle it, I mean, you don't really know. So it's probably worth trying that first. You got the DT here, quite different from an MG34 or 42. But other than that, nice detail here, and there's your track that goes on the front of the vehicle there. Here we have another sprue with the upper casement on it. So again, unlike Dragon, which comes in several parts, that's all moulded into one. There are some moulded detail in there for welding. You won't really be able to see it, but it's along here. So very similar to Dragon. It's actually different. I'd probably say this is a more realistic weld marks than the other ones, because they're all different, inconsistent type welds, which is probably a reflection of reality, unlike the Dragon ones, which is quite consistent. So I actually don't mind that. So it'll be interesting how this turns out in the end. It'll be a little bit cleaner because you've got the mud guards already moulded on. Okay, less building, but hey, you know, I prefer to get into the paint, to be honest, and get the build out of the way pretty quick. That's just me. and some more detail. And again, you've got nice weld marks going around the turret ring there anyway. I don't think the hatches are as nice as Dragons, but I think, you know, horses for courses, they'll pretty much turn out the same. So, you know, I think there's some things better, some things not as nicely moulded. Another sprue here with the full figure. Another gun there, but this isn't the gun that you use. The gun I showed you before is the actual one that you use. So I'd say that this is probably the German, just a different version of the German, of a different German gun. But this is all the rest of the gun casement here, some tools, and some more figures as a half. So you've kind of got enough to make 2 figures, potentially 3. So again, like most Tamiya figures, this is actually a German figure, so you won't be using this guy. And this is a German guy either, so this must be out of their German kit. These aren't Finnish. So it's the other guy I showed you before, he's the Finnish guy that you're going to end up using. But in terms of detail, nicely, again, crisp moulding, it'll turn out typical sort of Tamiya. They don't have as many parts, but it'll turn out very nice, I think, that vehicle, with some unique decals on there, and with the extra detail of the logs and the concrete casement and the gun, I think it'll just end up being a very nice model. In the kit as well, you've got the decals, which I'll just open up here. All your finish markings, different sort of personalisation of the vehicles and different variants. So it'll actually turn out quite nice. I'm looking forward to that. Sometimes I get so many models I don't know which one to go in and build first. But look, that's the StuG, the Finnish StuG. Nice one to add to your collection. Again, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.